and a JROTC, Junior OTC Cadet Corporal Student at Hawthorne Academy of Health Science. Welcome, Chloe. Chloe is here. She's going to introduce our speaker for the evening. Handing the mic over.
Good afternoon. I'm Chloe. It's nice to be here. This is actually the first time I'm ever doing this, so bear with me, but I'm going to have some fun with it. So I am going to be introducing Mr. Kelly Pratt III. Mr. Kelly Pratt is a native of Charlotte, North Carolina, or also known as a Charlotte teen. He is a graduate of West Charlotte High School. He also attended UNC Charlotte, where he achieved a major of accounting and minors in African and African American studies, and also management information systems. Mr. Pratt is a part of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Mr. Pratt is also married to Mrs. Angelina Pratt. He is a father of 4 and a grandfather of 3. Mr. Pratt, his career focus is financial and informational systems audits. He has successfully completed the Certified Public Accountant CPA exam. Oh, also CPA, I'm sorry. Also CPA. He has also completed the Certified Information System Auditor. He has worked for the largest CPA firms, such as Arthur Andersen and Deloitte, and Fortune's 100 companies such as Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and IBM. Currently, Mr. Pratt is a managing director of Pratt Consultants. He is VP Finance of Beam Foundation of Charlotte, and he is a board member of multiple nonprofit churches and civic organizations. Welcome, Mr. Pratt.
Let me unmute myself. Thank you very much. That intro was great, Chloe, but I aspire to have an intro like yours. At such a young age, you seem to be well on your way. Outstanding start for you, it seems. Thank you for everyone. I want to first thank the Zetas for having me. And thank everyone that is viewing this for spending your time here today. I'm gonna get started. I'll share my screen. Brittany, if that's good. I already have a glitch. Okay, let me know if you are viewing my screen, if you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So I love this this intro page. It's beautiful. But I'll start with go to the next slide here. So the first thing when I have these discussions with the youth, I know they think of us as kind of old folks that are lecturing them again, and you know, they listen, they're respectful, they listen, but at times I know they're thinking they won't need this too much later. So what I often do before, regardless of the topic, I always start with a bit of a timeline. And bear with me before I get into the meat of our given topic. Bear with me to kind of give this bit of perspective. I'll call it perspective. Bethany, this is what I was practicing. So my first question is, and hopefully someone can answer it. What is the estimated life expectancy for an American, boy or girl, average life expectancy? Anybody?
Please use your chat function to provide answers. We have 80.
80. I
80.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with 80. We'll go with 80.
70. 72.
I'm going to go with 80.
Okay. We're going to hope for the best.
I'm going to go with it. 70
All
and
right.
72 are good answers as well. That's probably closer to what you'll get when you Google it, but I'm going to go with 80.
All right.
No wrong answers here, unless it's less than 70 or less than my age. So bear with me here. This is a timeline of life, anybody's life. And let's say typically it'll end at 80, just based on the averages here. And let's say, obviously at the other end of the spectrum, there's when we're first born, 0. Based on my understanding, most of the folks on this call are but around the age of 15, somewhere between 15 and 18. Is that true? Maybe 15 to 20. So in the spectrum of life here, you're in this area, 15 to 20. Yes. And if you would go on to either go to college or learn a trade, I don't want to just say college isn't for everyone, but if you go on to learn a trade, let's say it takes you a few more years to learn a trade, and let's say you're done around, somewhere between 20 and 22 years old. Well, if you put all your energy, my message here is if you put a substantial amount of your energy to doing the best you can between these years, this year's from 15 all the way to 22 till you learn and master a trade or graduate from college with honors, hopefully, then if you spend the time doing that, then the remainder of your life. So I'm just asking you to sacrifice a little bit right here relative to your whole life, a little bit, just a few years, will make this part, the greater part of your life, much easier. I didn't say easy, I said easier. And I think, and I don't want to speak out of line here, I think the adults on this line certainly know this. I think the Zetas, of course, know this. This is why they're, they've brought together this series, because they want you to spend your time, understanding and gathering knowledge and prepping your life so that these later years, and a lot of this is the fun years, 40, 50, these are fun years. And they're much more fun when you're established, you've established a career, and you're stable, and you've set forth your way in life. These are much easier times, and I think this series is for the purpose of helping to ensure that you start out in good footing. Any questions on that? Probably not. I'll get to the presentation.
I will second what Mr. Pratt saying. It is definitely better to work hard and sacrifice those first 2 years, because that 40 to 50, you may have children and other people now dependent on you, to where it may be a different type of sacrifice. So I definitely second.
Thank you, Bethany. Sharing, yeah.
So as Mr. Pratt is preparing to share for his the meat of the presentation. I wanted to thank you guys for starting off with engaging, with giving us that timeline and the time frame that you think of the life expectancy. So again, we know you know how to use it. You're doing Zoom all the time, so definitely please use your chat panel, the chat section, as well as Q&A for any questions or comments. Thanks.
All right, I am having a little technical difficulty here. Give me a second.
Does anyone already have a budget? If you could put yes or no in the chat panel, in the chat. We have some yeses. That's great.
Good. Good.
So this will be great for you to reflect against what you already know. And then some no, not yet. I like that. Speak it into existence, Jamira. Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
All right.
It's coming.
Not a good one, but still, that's all right. You're going to figure out maybe some things that allow you to get rent up to where you want it to be. All right.
Yep.
So you guys are already forward thinkers because you're here on the call tonight. So you're already investing. You've already sacrificed 1 hour. So we hope for success. Mr. Pratt, you about ready?
Absolutely.
All right.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
You cannot. Yes.
Now, yes.
Okay. All right. So ultimately, I want you to know, I had some slides before that, but we'll skip past that. Ultimately, I just want you to know we're just like you were at a younger age, and definitely would have benefited from the knowledge that you're getting here today and in the rest of the series. So as the young lady mentioned earlier, I went to West Charlotte. I grew up in Charlotte, just like you, just like many of you, and I didn't have. We weren't rich. I wasn't particularly smart or particularly athletic or anything like that. There was nothing special about me, other than someone embedded in me something that I just kind of latched onto, and that was how to take care of your money. And the first step in taking care of your money, regardless of if you have $1 million or $100, is to plan as to how not only how you're you're going to spend that money, but also how to get more money. And the plan is really what the budget is all about. But the only difference between us older folks and some of the younger folks is we kind of got a head start in the game. That's what I call it. It's like we played Fortnite 2 weeks before it came out, and we knew all of the tricks of the trade. We know how to build faster than because we started out early. And so a lot of this is just so that we can teach you and tell you what we've learned, so you don't have to go through the same things we went through. Some of it you'll still go through, but at least you won't go through it as long. If you're attentive and you're listening to some of the things that us older folks are kind of advancing. And so those are that was my analogy for Call of Duty and Fortnite. So let's get into the budgeting. I know that's what we're talking about. First question for me is, when you think of budget, what do you think of?
Let's see what we have in the chat. What comes top of mind to budgeting? Bills.
Bills.
Tracking
People think
your
of bills.
spending.
Saving.
So when you think of
Priorities.
budgeting, do you think of that as a synonym for saving?
We're
The
looking at
person
a
that
plan
says
for your
saving?
money. We have allocating,
Investing,
investing.
Okay.
managing money.
Managing. I love that. I love all the answers.
Jordan has a good one. How much money you allow yourself to spend.
Oh, okay.
Make sure you don't overdraft, and
Yep.
saving and planning how you spent your money is spent.
Those are all great answers. And if you will allow me to kind of use the analogy that I like to use, which is it's a financial roadmap. And that's what a budget is supposed to be. So just as if you were going to take a trip, let's say across the country, the first thing we do is get Google Maps. Hit Google Maps, and it tells us, which way we need to go. It'll tell us how long it's going to take us to get there. And what's just as important is that if we decide to take a different route, let's say we're into the trip and we take a different route, Google Maps will tell us, hey, it's going to take you longer to get to your destination now. And so you can make the decision as to whether or not you make that turn, you stop for that dinner, or you continue on your way, depending on what your goals are. So you have a goal, and the budget is your plan. Anybody have any financial goals, short-term, long-term goals? In the chat. And there's
We
a
have a
difference
yes.
between
Yes and a
dreams and
no.
goals. So they're saying yes, okay. Yes and no. I don't have any goals.
401k in stock.
Okay. So
We have a
401k
yes.
is a means to a goal.
Purchase a home within the next 2 years.
Okay. Say it again, to own a home within the next 2 years.
Yes.
That's a goal. All right.
To be rich. A wedding.
A wedding. Okay. All right. So as I mentioned, a budget is a financial roadmap to, for example, a map to those goals that you just mentioned. And if you don't plan for it, you can still make it, but you should plan to have a plan so that you plan to get to that goal rather than plan to fail. That's what it always the typical lexicon is that if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So in short, what a budget shows at the bare roots is just your cash in and your cash out over a period of time, specified period of time. Someone mentioned a home in 2 years. So maybe you're budgeting with a 2-year plan in mind to get you to that home ownership, as an example. And I think where people sometimes get down on budgets is the estimating part. So because on the front end, you actually have to estimate how much money you're going to get in a particular month or period, and how much you're going to spend. And sometimes that's difficult for people. And we'll get into some of that shortly. But what I always say is have your estimates. Start with your estimates. Your estimates can start with historical numbers that you've made. So if it's a paycheck, if you were salaried, for example, maybe some of you are lucky enough to be salaried, then you kind of have a consistent rate of pay. Sometimes if you're lucky enough to be an entrepreneur, sometimes your paychecks may, or your pay may differ a bit, but I always say, still go with an estimate and then compare it to your actuals once you actually kind of realize that pay or those expenses. Any questions so far?
I have a question around estimates and actuals. So, how long would you propose, or how many pay periods would you say someone should look at those estimates?
I and it always depends on how old you are and how much mature you are as far as budgeting. So for people who are just starting budgeting, just do it for a month. Just do it for a month of pay, and then build up to 3 months and then 6 months. I think as you mature and kind of your mindset of budgeting, you'll realize that you to kind of look into the future a bit. At least 13 or 14 months is kind of the minimum for really getting the benefit out of a budget, and I'll tell you why. So the main reason is the budgets can be tools that help you kind of predict the future. So if you are, you're estimating your income and you're estimating your outs, maybe in certain months they're different. And so if you plan that out and you see that, hey, in this month I'm going to be a little short, then you'll know in the earlier months that you need to save to cover that shortfall. And so in order for your budgets to really give you the best benefit, it really needs to be as long as possible, as long as possible, but I say a minimum of 13 to 14
All right, so
months.
Mr. Pratt, we have a few questions that have come in with that great slide that you've kind of given everyone. So the first one, what do you mean when you say estimate? What does that look like for you
All right.
as it comes to budgeting?
All right. And we're going to get into this. I'm going to get into a
Okay.
specific budget. But
All right.
when I say an estimate, you if you're going to start your budget, you're going to start with, let's say you're going to start with your next pay period. Well, in essence, that's an estimate, or the next time you get money in. I shouldn't even say pay period. The next time you get money in, you're estimating when, not only what you're going to get, but you're estimating when you're going to get it. So when I say estimates, I mean, hey, you're estimating your income, your cash in, or your inflows. I call it inflows, and you're estimating your outflows. So you're estimating your bills. You're estimating your what you're going to spend on entertainment, what you're going to spend on food. Those are all estimates.
So
But
you're kind of
then
making your best
once
guess.
you, excuse
So
me,
it's kind of they're making their best guess on how much would come in or not. I have
yeah,
one more question around the estimate portion, and then we can move on. The other questions we may cover, but we'll make sure we cover those at the end. As relevant to, when would you recommend someone with a base plus commission omit commission during estimating, since those may vary?
I recommend that you, as Bethany mentioned, give it your best guess estimate, and it's not really a guess per se. It may be a guess at the beginning if you're new to this role, but your estimate should be based on historical data. So so if you've been in that role for a while, you can look back at the commissions for the previous periods and estimate those accordingly. You may have to adjust for things like COVID, for example, or some environmental or some sort of difference from last year. But I'll give the perfect example. Estimating your heat, for example. your heat bill, your heating bill. Let's say your natural gas bill, if you will. So, you know, you would estimate it based on your previous, you know, activity and your previous patterns and your previous bills. But if you don't have a previous bill, well, you can ask somebody typically, hey, how much is your bill? And what they'll say is, hey, in the warmer months, you know, I pay close to nothing. You know, maybe $40, $50. In the warmer months, I mean, in the colder months, I pay X amount. And that's your estimate. And but as you begin to get actuals in, that's why it's important to record the actuals. So you estimate a bill in August, and I'm just going to stick with this natural gas bill in August. You estimate $20, and it was $25. Then you record the actual amount of the bill. And next time, when it's time to start estimating for another year, and you're looking at August, then your best guess estimate is $25 because that's what it was last year. And unless there's some difference, maybe you moved, maybe you got windows and you're more energy efficient or something, you know, those are things that could change it. But for the most part, you can rely on historical data.
Awesome. All right, we're ready to move to the next slide.
Okay. let's let I think it's just best to hop to my budget example,
Okay.
and I can make this available. It's a simple example of a budget, and I want to make sure that you know, everybody has the basics. So, you know, my folks, I didn't realize it, but they had a budget. They didn't have, you know, Microsoft Excel or anything like that, or Google Sheets. What they had was the back of an envelope that they recorded, you know, what their estimate income was going to be, and what their estimate expenses were going to be, and how much they might be short, or how much they had to offer someone else. So, you know, the, you know, budgeting, I might fancy it up just a bit here, but budgeting is something that is inherent in all of us. It's just a matter of wanting to do it. So there's nothing here that's groundbreaking at all. You all have it. You all know it. You know that, you know, you can estimate how much money you're going to get in and all the ways that you get money. So I have just put some examples here. I'm assuming you can see my screen.
If you can't see the screen, I know a lot of times you can stretch it yourselves on the screen. He's making it bigger for you as well.
Yep.
All right.
Let me know if you can see that.
Does anyone have any problems? Nothing in the chat, so I think we're good.
I don't know if that did better or not. It did not.
It was good to, yeah, bring it in just
Okay.
perfect. Thanks.
So nothing, like I said, nothing groundbreaking here. I don't have a magic potion to even make you want to do a budget. What I have is just a simple way to start your budget. And I think once you get started and see the benefits of it, you'll continue. You know, it's really as simple as, you know, estimating your projected inflows of cash. So maybe your primary job, maybe you have a side gig. Maybe as teenagers, you get an allowance. Maybe you're like Chloe and have 15 streams of income. So you might have 15 lines right here. So, you know, estimate those inflows as best you can. And then estimate your outflows. And these are some typical outflows that, you know, a teenager or young adult may have. I left some out purposely, but let's go with this for right now. This is as if you're staying with mom and dad still, and they may or may not be charging you a little for housing. So
Mm-hmm.
nothing groundbreaking here. I want to point out, someone mentioned savings. So budgeting in and of itself doesn't help you save. Um, but if you're true to your budget, you should have a line on it as if it were a bill for saving. So, but to be frank, whenever we go over, so if we go over, so let me stop. Sorry. Let me explain what this is. So here are the projected. When I say projected, I mean estimate. Here are the estimate inflows, and I add them up. So for a particular month, you can do it by the week, month. Probably the month is where as the maximum I go, but you can do it for the week. I just decided to do it for the month. There's how much we're projected from an income standpoint. And when I sit back and I think about, all of my expenses, some historical expenses, some just pure estimates, I write it down. And I look at it, and well, in this case, I don't know how I did that, but in this case, it's even. But let's say I have the savings for just your normal savings, but then I have the savings for a special item. Someone said wedding, someone said house, and so that would be an example of savings for a special item. So you may have several rows of savings that you're preparing for a special item, and you might have a time frame that you're trying to get that item. So imagine you saying, I need to save, I'll just keep it easy, $120 in a year, to get this X, whatever it is. But then you know that you need to have a special savings of at least $10 a month, and I'm using easy math, but $10 a month to get you to that $120 in 12 months, right? And that's the plan. Now we fall off our plans, right? And it's perfectly normal. And that's what I want. That's what I want everybody to understand. It is a budget is just a plan. Just like going on a trip and saying I'm going to go 85 north to 40 to 81 or whatever. It's just a plan. But hey, I saw an amusement park that I didn't know was there. So I'm going to take a little off ramp. You're not obviously not going to get to your goal at the time that you said, but at least you're not. You are aware of that now. Or if it's important for you to get to your goal at the time that you said, then you know that you can't stop at this amusement park. And that's kind of my analogy for some of these things that we and now with COVID, we're Amazoning out, at least I am. And so I might have a budget here for what I'm going to spend for certain items, but sometimes we go over. What a budget does, the budget doesn't prevent you from going over. If you stick to your budget though, it tells you the effects of going over in a certain area. So for example, if I projected that, if I'm projecting, even in your projection, so if I'm projecting that I am going to spend $150 in clothing instead of the 50 that I had, then now I'm short. I'm projecting to be short. So now I have to go somewhere. I either have to increase up here, or I have to decrease somewhere down here. Now, most of us who are salary, for example, we know what this number is for the most part. It's not going up and going down week by week or day by day. It's going to be the same or nearly the same. Once you get your estimates, it's going to be, once you get your estimates and you're maturing your estimates, especially as far as your projected inflows, then you're gonna be pretty spot on with it, and it's not gonna go up and go down. So you can't. It's not like you can finesse this number unless you say, "Hey, I need to work because I know I'm short. I got to work more hours." So maybe you're hourly. You say, "I got to work more hourly," or "I got to get another side gig," or "I got to Uber." But the fact is, when you look at this projection, and now you want to spend some more money for, let's say you want to go to a concert, or you want to gift someone something, which I don't have on here. That's information that you can use to make decisions.
Mr. Pratt, while we're still on this screen, we're getting some feedback. Can we make it a little bit larger, maybe to 150%? It has such good information. I think some people are trying to definitely be able to dig in. So that's a good thing.
I will section it by section it.
All right. Let me know when you're ready for questions on budgeting on your worksheet.
I am.
All right. So it looks Galaxy J2. I see you have a raised hand. Did you have a question? You would have to unmute would have to unmute you if you have a question. Let's see. Can you unmute yourself? I'm sorry. I can't mute you. All right. While we're waiting, we have another question from Robin Solomon. You have a raised hand as well. Did you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry, I have Galaxy J2 coming in. Did you have a question?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. All right. Robin Solomon? No? All right. All right, so I'm going to go to the chat. What mistakes, Robin, here's your question, thanks. What mistakes do people that start a budget often make that a budgeter should avoid?
I wouldn't call them mistakes because it's kind of expected out of a first-time budgeter that they will underestimate the expenses and overestimate their income.
Okay.
And maybe it's because they are, they believe that they can increase their income, on demand. And I think that is one of the items that the other thing is not realizing where your money goes out. So at the beginning, when you're budgeting and you hadn't budgeted before, you'll literally be amazed at where your money actually goes. And I'm going to get to that in a minute with the actuals. So because you have to keep up with the actuals, you got to keep up with every receipt, within reason, every receipt, or at least jot down the number, how much you spent on what. And I think you at the beginning, you won't realize when you're projecting your expenses, you won't yet realize all of the money you spend on certain things. You won't realize that, hey, I actually spend X amount on lunch because I eat here every day, or food in general, or groceries in general. And I'm talking more to the adults and the young adults and adults now. But those are the key items.
Okay. I'm going to try to take a couple more because I don't want to make sure we're aware of our timing. So the next question is, any suggestions I'm sorry, let me look at this one again.
While you're looking at that, I got
The-
one more thing, one more
okay, sorry,
item.
go ahead.
Sorry. The other mistake is credit cards. And
Yes,
I am not gonna, and I'm not gonna tell you
there's a science to it.
not to use credit cards. I'm not. Most people do tell you not to use credit cards. I tell you, like with anything else, manage your debt overall, including your credit cards appropriately. And they're fine tools if you do that. But with budgeting, in regard to budgeting, people put it on a credit card and they don't treat it as an actual, and they certainly don't treat the expense as an actual.
Right.
So they may have credit card on here as a whole line item, when actually what's on your credit card is what, I'm sorry, credit card on here as a whole item on your actuals, which it really should be these specific categories that you spent on your credit card that should be estimated. A credit card would just be a means of payment. It's not an expense in and of itself. The interest is, but what you put on the credit card is not an outflow. I mean, what you put on the credit card is an outflow of the cash, not a credit card in and of itself.
The next question relevant to this, and then we'll move on to the questions around credit card. I'm sorry, when do you fill in the projected slots? At the beginning of the month, and then the actual at the end? What is that timeline?
Mm-hmm. If I were you, and let's say you're starting right now, start your projected now. You don't have to wait for like the first of a month. You can start your estimates now. And certainly start thinking of your projections now, even if you want to start at the beginning of the month. But I would, if I would make it in line with my the pay that I get, so the substantial pay that I get. So I would have put it in line with that at the beginning. So if you get paid every 2 weeks, go ahead and be thinking of your budgeted items, but go ahead and start your projections, right after the 2 weeks before, and then go at least to 3 months. I would say go to 3 months, but if you can't go to 3 months, just do it monthly. I want you to start. That's the most important part. Start,
Okay.
go to 3 months, and then start from there.
All right, Mr. Pratt, I'm going to let you keep going so that we can be mindful of the time and maybe get some more of these questions in at the end, at least so that we get through the slides.
Yep. So someone jumped to the actuals. That's great. And this is literally the hardest part of the budget. The hardest part of the budget is collecting the information for the actuals, especially if I think that is the benefit for people who are mature in budgeting. That is the benefit of a credit card and or debit card, is if you use those primarily, then you have your outflows pretty handy. And then it's the cash in your pocket that you have to watch out for, and how that leaks out and is unaccounted for. But if most of your expenses are done on a debit card, let's say, I don't want to promote credit cards, but if they're done on a debit card, for example, then you can look at your statements and get your actual outflows. And receipts are handy. And then but also your actual inflows for a particular period are important as well, and comparing that. So how good is my estimate? So this is another thing. How good is my estimate? How good was my estimate, and why? So there's a point where you have to analyze your budget. So I have my actuals. For some reason, I thought I was getting $400 from my primary job. I got $450. hey, that's great that I got more, but if I need, maybe I feel that I need to be more accurate in predicting that I was going to get 450, or vice versa. If the opposite happened, you were predicting 450, but you only got 400, and that was, at least in the case of this person, that's fairly significant for that person. This person, me, I'll say this is me. This is fairly significant for me. So then, and that analysis helps to make your budget better going forward. And that's what I mean by maturing your budget activities in your budgeting process. Okay. So painstakingly, so I still, the projections are important. I don't want anybody to feel like I'm just going to throw this budget down because I don't have time to do the actuals or whatever. The projections are important, but I want you to also focus on the actuals, and that'll tell you how good how good your actual budgeting process is and how good your estimates are. And you're gonna learn for yourself where your money goes, and you're gonna be surprised. I guarantee it. Any questions?
Mr. Pratt, once you get to the last slide, then we'll go through all the remaining questions that are coming through the chat.
All right, so I'll rush through these. I know we're up against the time, but and I've mentioned some of these, the benefits of maintaining a budget. You're making these long and short-term projections about your financial situation. You see this plan in front of you. You've created these projections. You estimated your expenses and your inflows, and you can see when you do it over a period of time, you can see, wait, let me go back to, you might be able to see, wait, I'm short here. I'm projected to be short here. And you have to make a decision. So maybe your decision is to borrow money from your mother or dad. Or maybe your decision is, most people's decision is, I'm not going to save as much as I had planned to save. And that's unfortunate. And sometimes we back into that. So we actually overspent what we projected. And then that just means we're not going to save more. I think that's what happens. But I guess my point is, this is information. This is a plan. The actuals are true information that you can make decisions for that can change your life going forward. And just like I'm alluding to, averting financial crisis, being able to project when you're going to be short, being able to, see where you're spending money, where the money is leaking, and correcting that. Maybe you're overspending in one area in one period, and because of that, that you have to adjust your actuals in another area. Those are the things that a budget helps you with in avoiding any kind of financial crises. A lot of times people think budgeting is about, once again, they think it's about saving money or making me not spend money. And actually, it can be pretty refreshing to know I have this plan ahead of me, and I can afford this thing. And I don't have to worry or fret about whether or not I can afford it or not. It can also be refreshing when you have your budget in front of you and someone asks you for money, and you can confidently say, I can't afford it. I can't afford it, because if let's go back to my thing. If I drop this in, let's say I'm giving someone a loan here, and they ask me for $500, I can drop this in and say, oh no, I know I can't afford it, because I would have to get rid of all of these things, or something. So you can confidently say and honestly say, I can't afford it. once you start doing a budget, I'll give you a little bit of advice. Once you start doing your budget, you'll find that other people that you're in other people's budget, even if they don't have one. So they're thinking they can borrow money from you because you have money, and you're in effect, you're in their mental budget. So just be mindful of that. But at least it gives you the confidence to say, I can't let you borrow this money because of this. You don't have to tell them all of this, but you know you can't. Or maybe you can give them an amount that would make it comfortable for you. All right. We're waiting to the end. All right.
Yeah.
I keep saying that. All right. So I looked at the templates. We looked at the templates already. We'll get to the questions. This is my last slide. I use Excel for my personal budgets. I started out simple, then you build, and I actually am down to kind of the day. So I look, what day of the month does this bill come? Which day of the month am I expecting this pay? And you can fairly easily see the cash flow and seeing where, hey, I might be short, or I can't, I have to be very strict in this period because, my cash flow would be low, for example. So, but I think what I really need to start doing is using one of these apps, or some of the banks have apps that help you with budgeting. They in effect grab all of your accounts, all of your bills, put them in one place, and you can understand with that how it will make it easier for your budgeting and to see your overall financial picture. So they literally, if you have a credit card, they connect to that credit card company and bring in the details about that account, your minimum payments, and et cetera, how much you owe, the interest, all of that. And they connect to other things. And then of course they allow you to add in manually certain bills that, of course they may not know about. So I would personally, I looked into Mint, and I like the way it was laid out, and I think it would be very helpful. But every dollar was good as well. But any budgeting tool, even if it's paper to start out with, I would recommend.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Pratt, for the wealth of knowledge that you just provided us on budgeting, and also giving us the insight on if we make the sacrifice early on, it will make it much easier later on in life. I definitely appreciate the additional insight as well. We have answered several questions. Chloe, do you see any additional in the chat?
Yes, ma'am. I'm about to pull it up.
I'm going to go back.
So the last question I see, or I'm going to start with, is what are steps a 15-year-old can use to budget with only an allowance?
I think that's the perfect time to start budgeting. I wish I would have. So you have an allowance that is, and you pretty much know you're going to get this allowance, every period, whether it's every week, every day, I don't know, every 2 weeks. And you're ahead of a lot of people who can't, predict, how much income they're going to get in a particular period. So start there. And then whatever bills you have, or whatever future outflows of cash you're expecting, drop that into a budget, and then, keep track of what you actually spend it on. I just think this is the perfect time. In order to grow, it's better when you start out when you're small. and when I say small, I mean small as far as the amount of you're getting an allowance, so that is smaller than once you get out into the world and start working for yourself. Those are going to be bigger amounts and more responsibility. So consider it almost like a practice, and an opportunity to hone your and mature this budgeting process for yourself.
Awesome. Any more questions, Chloe?
Yes. Any tips on how to use a credit card?
I think Bethany might jump in here, but I think credit and credit cards are a separate.
I don't use credit cards. I don't know what you're talking about.
So I'm just
I don't
saying,
use one either. I use
you shouldn't, Chloe. But my tip, and it's going to be a little controversial, but my tip on debt overall, including credit cards, is just like my tips for budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
You if you make a decision to use your credit card, then make sure you know what the impact is.
Right.
And that's the problem. That's how things get out of whack, is because the ease of using a credit card without understanding the impact. So I would say make sure you're understanding the impact before you use a credit card.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to understand the impact is through budgeting.
So one of the things I've received several tips on credit cards, and so I only have one. Some of the tips have been to make sure that you understand that interest rate, as well as you understand when your interest begins accruing on the purchases you've made. If you correlate with Mr. Pratt's budgeting and you want to use a credit card because now they're offering you points and rewards for using their cards, people are using the credit card to build their credit history to pay off those allocated expenses that he's mentioned, to pay the for the food, the entertainment, the clothing, but it's already in your budget, so you can't go over what American Express or MasterCard or Citibank tells you. You have to follow your budget. So those are some like just quick tips that I've learned about credit cards.
And that applies to what you just said, applies to all debt. If you go to first of all, exactly how much you're going to get in each month.
Mm-hmm.
When you do this, you know what your outflows are typically. But you can go to a car lot. They're not going to really ask you for this. You can go to a car lot. They're going to pull your credit, and I don't know how everybody gets approved, but you're going to get approved.
Mm-hmm.
They could care less if you had $200 allocated for saving for your special house or your special day. They're trying to get the sale, and if they can get the sale, they're going to get the sale. And then but you know what you can afford by looking at your budget, and I don't want to get into that because I feel strongly about the whole car sales thing, because they get into the payment.
So let's not go there, Mr. Pratt. Come on back.
Let's bring it back. But my point is, just as I'm very consistent in saying this, understand the ramifications of the financial decisions you're making before you make them, whether it's a credit card, buying a car, buying a house, or buying extra shoes.
And those ramifications extend beyond your bottom line in your budget or your savings account or your
what
checking
you have
account.
in your pocket.
They go into your credit history as well, which will impact other things. So credit is real. One last question. I don't see any others coming in. How do you incorporate the sorority or fraternity life into a regular living budget? Because we like to spend money on paraphernalia.
We do, but I have categories for everything in my budget, and paraphernalia will be clothes. I know when there are conventions. I know when my dues are due. I know, and I might have I typically have a line item for, miscellaneous, But at the end of the day, regardless of what it is, if I wanna spend it, then something else I can't spend.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to reduce the other amount. So that's how I manage it.
So, sorry.
Unless for some reason I want it so bad, I want to put it on a credit card, which I wouldn't recommend, but sometimes you do. Long as you understand the ramifications, and I would also say have a plan for getting that off the credit card as fast as possible, then you're an adult. Do that. I
Mhm.
just wouldn't recommend it if you can avoid it.
All right. So I'm just going to kind of speed this along a little bit to be mindful. Is it a good idea to put your child as an authorized user on your card to help them start to build credit? My mom did that for me, so and that's still the only credit card I still have. But
Oh,
Mr. Pratt, interested? Yeah, interested to see
that's
what you have.
good. Um, I I am not an advocate of that. I'm not an advocate of that, but I don't feel strongly either way.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think if you want your child to build credit, then it should be something with some collateral attached to it. I'll put it that way. I'll
Okay.
be clear. Not a credit card. A car. Buy a
Mm-hmm.
car, put it in their name. It's a different. It flows differently in your credit report,
Right.
and it builds the credit faster.
Great advice. Great advice. Everybody's interested in these credit cards. Um, do credit cards boost your credit score? Yay or nay? They just want it blank. Yay or nay? Do they boost your credit score? I want to know this too.
It's not a yay or nay question. I
Right.
think I'm going to be consistent here.
Okay.
The proper management of your expenses, your inflows and outflows,
Mm-hmm.
regardless uh, as to what medium you use to manage that, whether it's out of your pocket cash, whether it's a debit card or a credit card. If you're managing that well, and you're using a credit card to as the medium, and you're managing it well, then it will inevitably increase your credit. Um, but I think you need a whole series about credit because there's way
Mm-hmm.
more that goes into it, and it's about that income, that top level, your income,
Mm-hmm.
over your debt to income kind of
Mm-hmm. Ratio.
ratio there,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of goes into your, and of course how you're paying your account, how consistently you're paying your account on time. Those are the key things towards raising your credit.
So that's one of those questions as a follow up from the same participant. What if you don't even have one? Should you at least get one?
I think you should,
Right.
and I always I think you should, but
Mhm.
I always say get an American Express because you have to. They changed it, but generally you have to pay that
Mhm.
every month. So you actually are using it as a charge card, not a credit card, but it
Mhm.
boosts your credit. Um, but any credit card that you get, use it as a charge card. Like,
Mhm.
and the difference being, I'm just charging this. Um, I have the cash in my pocket or I have the cash in my bank account, but I'm charging this as a convenience, as just a medium of pay. But I'm going to pay it all when
At
that
one
bill
time.
comes. I'm going to pay it.
Mhm. Versus credit where you're able to carry a balance over. Is
Carrying
that
it.
what you mean?
Yep.
Okay.
And then
All right.
it's all out of whack. Those are
Any more?
things you learn over the years. Like my parents kept telling me that, and I went to school and got every credit card done to man and didn't have a
Yep.
job.
Yep.
So imagine that, and they kind of bailed me out, and I learned my lesson.
And
So
that's one thing I would second is to be aware for some of you who are in high school going off to college when the credit cards prey on high school or in college students because you want to be able to get what you want without having to go to your parents or to someone else. And they will not stop from giving you. You can have 4 or 5 and you feeling like you're living the best life. So just be mindful and definitely don't be afraid to consult your parents. And you have Mr. Pratt here now that you can reach out to as a resource.
And Bethany, I want
Um,
to add to that.
mhm.
When you go to college or in high school, um, how should I say this? There's a culture of struggle. Like you're supposed to struggle. You're not supposed to floss. You're not there to floss. You're
Is that
there to
generational,
learn.
Mr. Pratt, though?
Huh? I said again.
Is that generational?
No,
Okay.
we. I think it's no, it's not. I wanted to, uh, but let's go back to that timeline. It's
Mhm.
not my time to floss. It wasn't my time to floss.
Mhm.
It wasn't. I'm gonna sacrifice. I mean, you can floss a little bit, but I'm gonna sacrifice um for these 4 or 5 years so that I can do what I want to for the other
Mhm.
60 years. And once you learn, you're not even going to want to floss then. You're going to try to stack like you're going to look at your budget and you're going to try to stack and
Right.
floss here and there.
Okay. Um, let's see. Did you any more questions? Max for credit. Is it 29%? I'm not really sure on the, is that the rate
I
that you
think the
that they're
interest rate,
asking?
it depends on the state. The
States.
states
Yeah.
determine the max interest rates
Okay.
on credit cards.
Okay. Well, I think I don't see any additional questions coming in. I'm going to check the Q&A panel. No additional questions coming in. So you all have been very, very engaged and very, we appreciate all this insight, Mr. Pratt. Any follow-up questions? Like you said, Chloe mentioned Mr. Pratt in his bio, and continue to follow us in our on our website for Zeta and Psi Mu Zeta, and you'll also be able to follow us in social media and see additional handles with Mr. Pratt's information. All right.
Bethany, I want to throw out a challenge there. If
All
people
right.
are still on, some people may have left, so they're going to
We're
lose
still
out.
holding strong.
Okay. Um, I of all the young ladies that are part of the Arcanettes,
Okay.
I would like them to submit a budget and and a good budget, not just putting something together. And I can tell.
Hmm.
And then I will choose three randomly, three of those budgets for a prize, and not just a little prize, a real
Hmm.
prize. Because I feel strongly that we need to encourage young folks to, you know, to create budgets. And that's the
Hmm.
beginning piece of financial management.
All
And,
right.
and I feel strongly. So three of you, I'll pick randomly if you complete a budget, and we're at our next, by your next, I don't know, the next time the
Yeah, we'll
upcoming
send that to
events.
you, and we'll connect with the youth auxiliary advisors and connect with you, Mr. Pratt. I will say that one additional resource that can be helpful for starting your younger kids in saving money and seeing how money is spent is the green light card. It also allows you to them to see how much money they have. You have control over it as their parent, and you can also see where they can allocate money for things such as charity as well. So the green light card is something that I've used for my young girls. They're 8 and 9. If anyone is on here and has young children that they would also like to start looking at money and budgeting. All right, so we have a few upcoming events. This was part one of a 3-part series. We will move on to part two in February of 2021. We will talk about, again, the value of the Black dollar, but a path to entrepreneurship. entrepreneurship. So this one might be a little more focused on those who are looking to start their own businesses. Right. So you definitely want to make sure you register because this time registration capped out. So don't wait to the last minute. Make sure you're registering. But Zeta Phi Beta is also about helping other people excel, but we're also about having a good time and also donating as we're doing it. So we have two additional events. Founders Day, we're going to have a virtual karaoke party. Make sure you stay tuned and make sure you register for that as well. On Saturday, January 16th, we want to see you for Chucks and Pearls Part 2. This again is the virtual edition, but we're learning how to make it still just as live. So save that date as well. Thank you, everyone, again for participating and staying engaged and holding on. Mr. Pratt, we appreciate all of your insight. And Chloe, you have been awesome. I'll have you next time on my side. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Chloe.
You're welcome. Thank you.